In May of 1944, on a freezing mountain in Italy, during one of the bloodiest, most pointlessly miserable battles of the entire Second World War, a soldier in the Polish army was hauling crates of live artillery shells up to the front line. Each crate weighed about 100 pounds. He carried them one after another for hours under enemy fire and reportedly never dropped a single one. This soldier had an official rank, he had a paybook, he had a serial number. He also had 4 legs, a tail, around 500 pounds of muscle and a well-documented drinking problem, because he was a bear. I need you to understand that I am not being cute right now. This is not a nickname, this was not some tough guy the lads called Bear. This was a real, literal, honey-loving, cigarette-eating brown bear who was formally enlisted into the Polish Second Corps as a private soldier, handed a serial number, later promoted and shipped off to war like it was the most normal thing in the world. His name was Wojtek, and by the end of this video you are going to be a little bit furious that nobody taught you this in school. They made you memorize the Magna Carta about 11 separate times and somehow skipped the beer-drinking, spy-catching war bear. Great priorities, education system, really nailed it. So settle in, because before Wojtek was a decorated soldier with a serial number, he was a broke orphan who got bought by the army for the 1940s, equivalent of couch change, and I promise you, that is somehow not even close to the weirdest part. We'll get to the naked spy. Yes, naked spy. Keep that one in your back pocket. Okay. To explain how a bear ends up in an army, I have to explain how this particular army ended up wandering through the mountains of Iran, and buckle up, because this backstory is bleak enough that the bear is going to feel like a vacation. Our story starts with the Polish Second Corps, also called Anders' Army, after their commander, General Władysław Anders. These were Polish soldiers and civilians who had been captured by the Soviet Union and dumped into Siberian labor camps, which is a polite way of saying frozen misery prisons, where the food was more of a rumor than a meal. Then, in 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. The Soviets suddenly and desperately needed friends, and they went, and I'm paraphrasing here, you know those Poles we've been freezing to death in Siberia? What if, and hear us out, they fought for us instead? So this army of half-starved survivors was released and told to make their way across the Middle East to link up with the British. And in 1942, marching through Persia, which is modern-day Iran, some of these soldiers ran into a local shepherd boy who was carrying a sack. Inside the sack was a very small, very orphaned bear cub, whose mother had been shot by hunters, because humans are just delightful. The soldiers did the reasonable military thing and traded the kid for the bear. Accounts vary on the price. Some say a few cans of food, some say chocolate, a Swiss army knife and a bit of cash. The point is, the Polish army acquired a bear, roughly the way you'd grab a snack at a gas station. He was tiny. He couldn't even swallow properly yet. So the soldiers fed him condensed milk out of an empty vodka bottle, which, if you sit with that for a second, tells you everything you need to know about the environment this bear was about to grow up in. His very first bottle was a vodka bottle. This bear never stood a chance of turning out normal. They named him Wojtek, which is spelled W-O-J-T-E-K, but pronounced Wojtek because Polish spelling runs entirely on chaos and vibes. The name is an old Polish one that roughly means happy warrior, or he who enjoys war, which is a genuinely hilarious amount of foreshadowing to accidentally slap on a bear you just pulled out of a bag. Now here's the thing about raising a bear in a military camp full of bored, traumatized young men who just escaped a Siberian death camp. You are not raising a wild animal. You are raising the world's largest, hairiest little brother. Wojtek grew up thinking he was one of the guys. Not like the guys. One of the guys. He wrestled the soldiers. He slept in the tents with them, usually on top of whoever was least able to say no. He learned to march along beside them. He even figured out how to sort of salute by raising his paw when he saw the men do it, which is the kind of thing that makes a grizzled 40-year-old sergeant quietly tear up behind a tent. And then there were the vices. Because these men, and I cannot stress this enough, taught the bear to drink beer. Wojtek loved beer. It was his reward, his treat, his little weekend. He would hold the bottle in both paws, tip it all the way back, and then stare mournfully into the empty bottle, looking for more, which is the single most relatable thing a bear has ever done. He also loved cigarettes, not smoking them exactly. He would beg for a lit cigarette and then eat it. He'd swallow the entire burning thing, which sounds like it should absolutely kill a bear, and instead just became one of his little quirks. And if you didn't hand one over, he would pester you until you did, like that one co-worker who quit, but still somehow bums the smoke of everyone at every party. His all-time favorite thing in the world, though, was water, showers specifically. Water was rationed and precious out in the desert, so naturally the bear figured out how to sneak into the shower tent and gleefully waste every last drop of it, and that, my friends, brings us to the naked spy. So one day Wojtek slips into the camp bathhouse to enjoy a nice illegal shower, as was his habit, except this time the bathhouse is already occupied, by a man who very much should not have been there. An enemy spy had snuck into the camp and was hiding out in the bathing area, probably feeling pretty pleased with himself, and then he turned around and came face to face with a 500-pound bear who was extremely annoyed to find his spa day already booked. The spy screamed, obviously. You would scream too. Do not pretend you wouldn't. His screaming alerted the Polish soldiers, who came sprinting in and discovered that their bear had personally cornered an enemy infiltrator in the nude in a shower. Wojtek got extra food and, by some accounts, a celebratory beer as a reward. The spy got captured and presumably a lifetime of trust issues involving bathrooms. So yes, the bear caught a spy while both of them were technically off the clock. Let's keep moving, because somehow this keeps getting better. By 1943, the Polish Second Corps got their orders. They were being shipped from Egypt over to Italy to fight the Germans for real. And there was one small logistical problem. The transport ships were British, and the British, bless their little paperwork-loving hearts, had a very strict rule. No pets, no mascots, no animals allowed on military transport, full stop. Now most units, faced with that rule, would have tearfully hugged their bear goodbye. The Polish Second Corps looked at the rule, then looked at the bear, and then discovered the single greatest loophole in military history. If mascots aren't allowed, fine, he won't be a mascot, he'll be a soldier. So they officially enlisted Wojtek, the bear, into the army. He was given the rank of private. He got a real name and surname on paper, an official serial number, and his own paybook. He was assigned to the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. On the manifest, he was not listed as livestock. He was listed as personnel. And the British, presumably far too exhausted to argue with a group of heavily armed men who had already survived Siberia, let a bear walk onto a warship purely because the paperwork insisted he was a dude. And I want to be crystal clear about what this means. Somewhere in official military records, there is a bear with a rank and a service number. He could, in theory, be saluted. He technically outranked brand new recruits. If you were a fresh-faced 18-year-old private on your first day, there was a real non-zero chance the bear had seniority on you. Imagine getting bossed around by an animal that eats cigarettes, and then they went off to war for real. Which brings us right back around to where we started, as the Battle of Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino was a nightmare. It was a series of brutal assaults on a heavily fortified German position sitting on top of a mountain, and it ground up Allied troops for months. The Polish Second Corps was thrown in to help finally crack it, and it was miserable, muddy, uphill, freezing, and drenched in artillery fire the entire time. Now, an artillery unit's whole job is moving shells. Heavy wooden crates of ammunition dragged from the supply trucks up to the guns, over and over and over, as fast as humanly possible, because a big fancy artillery gun is a very expensive paperweight without anything to fire. It is back-breaking, exhausting work, and every single second counts. So Wojtek, watching his men strain and stagger under these crates, apparently just started helping. He watched exactly what the soldiers were doing, copied them, and began carrying boxes of artillery shells, crates that normally took several men to lift, straight up to the guns. And according to the soldiers who were actually there, he never dropped one, not a single shell. Now, is this legend maybe polished up a little? Sure. Probably. Soldiers love a good story, and I fully believe a cold, tired, homesick unit made their beloved bear sound extra heroic around the campfire. But the core of it is backed up by the men who served right alongside him. And here is the kicker. It was official enough that the 22nd Company adopted a brand new emblem. A bear, standing upright, carrying an artillery shell. That image became the formal insignia of the entire unit. And I'm sorry, but you do not put a bear on your official military badge unless that bear earned the spot. So Wojtek didn't just tag along to war as a furry morale booster. This animal has a combat resume. And then the war ends. Germany loses. Fantastic. Except now we've got a brand new problem, and it is the saddest problem in this entire video. So brace yourselves, because we spent 12 minutes laughing, and now I have to go and make you feel things. After the war, the Polish Second Corps was demobilized in Scotland, of all the places on earth, at a camp down in the Scottish borders, and for a while it was lovely. Wojtek became a full-blown local celebrity. He'd hang out with the soldiers, charm the villagers, and occasionally scare the life out of some poor Scottish farmer by being, a bear roughly the size of a small car. Local kids fed him honey and sweets. He was, briefly, a very large and very beloved Scottish resident. But here's the heartbreaker. The soldiers were being sent home or scattering off to build new lives, and a lot of them couldn't go back to Poland at all because Poland was now under Soviet control, and these were the exact men the Soviets had already tried to erase once in those labor camps. They had no home to bring a bear back to. Nobody's shiny new post-war apartment came with a bear-shaped hole in it. So in 1947, with genuinely heavy hearts, they gave Wojtek to the Edinburgh Zoo. And this next part is the bit that gets me. Wojtek spent the entire rest of his life at Edinburgh Zoo. He lived until 1963, reaching around 21 years old and roughly 500 pounds of very good boy. And by pretty much every account, he never forgot the men. Former soldiers would come and visit him, and when they called down to him in Polish, the language he'd been raised on his whole life, he would reportedly perk right up, sit up tall, and get excited in a way he simply did not for random strangers. Some of them would toss cigarettes over the enclosure wall for old time's sake, and he would eat them, exactly like the good old days. A few veterans even climbed into the enclosure to wrestle with him, which the zookeepers were understandably not exactly thrilled about. Just sit with that for a second. This animal got pulled out of a sack in the mountains of Iran, raised by a bunch of lonely soldiers hauled halfway across the planet through a literal world war. And in the end, the thing that lit him up more than anything was hearing his old language and seeing his old friends. That is not a pet. That is a veteran. Wojtek died in 1963, but he did not get forgotten, because this story is frankly too good to be allowed to die. Today there are statues of him all over the place, a big bronze one in Edinburgh, standing in Princess Street Gardens, one in Krakow, in Poland, others scattered around the world. There are children's books, documentaries, plaques, memorials. A bear that a group of exhausted, homeless, half-starved soldiers found inside a bag became a permanent monument because to them, in every single way that actually mattered, he was one of them. So the next time somebody tries to tell you that history is boring, you look them dead in the eye and you tell them about Wojtek, the orphaned cub who drank beer, ate lit cigarettes, cornered a naked spy, earned an official military rank, carried live ammunition through one of the worst battles of the Second World War, and then retired as a beloved celebrity in Scotland. And then gently asked them why school made you color in a map of ancient Mesopotamia for a week instead of teaching you any of this. Anyway, if a bear can get promoted, you can absolutely afford to tap the subscribe button. It's free, and Wojtek did not haul all of those shells up a mountain just for you to wander off without subscribing. He'd be disappointed in you. Do you really want to disappoint the war bear? Because next time I've got the story of another animal that history, against all better judgment, allowed to take part in serious human business. And trust me, that one is somehow even dumber. But that, my friends, is a story for another video.